Hello, everyone. Nice to see you at our webinar. Just we will wait a couple of minutes for those who are joining in the process of joining, and we will start the webinar. Today, we are going to talk about the specific of a very interesting category for every grocery retailer, which is fresh. We know that it's very painful category for everyone, and the topic is really hot. So hope that today webinar will be really insightful and interesting for you. So please join. Maybe you can introduce yourself. What retail chain do you represent? Maybe some questions, like some hot questions, which you would like to receive the answers for. You can type them in chat, and just a couple of minutes, and we will start. Please confirm that everything is fine with the sound, with the video, that you can see our presentation. Everything works. If everything is fine, you can just type plus in our chat so we can see that everything is good with the sound.
And if you will have some issues during the presentation, please type in chat as well, for us to be sure that everything is fine with the connection and with the sound and the picture.
Yep. Okay, just a couple of more minutes and we will start the webinar. And actually, according to registrations, I saw that today we are going to have a very international team of listeners. So we have a lot of countries here. We have European countries, we have Middle East countries. So we are really happy to see everyone, to see such an international team here. Okay, I think that we can start. Maybe someone will join in a while. So today the topic of our webinar is top 5 specifics of fresh category inventory management in grocery retail. But actually, when we were preparing for this topic, we understood that it's almost impossible to name just like 5, and we added +1 because this one was also very important. So it will gonna be 5 + 1 specific for managing this like very sensitive, this interesting fresh category. Before we go to the topic of the webinar, let me introduce the speakers who will be conducting the webinar. So today it's Helen Shipanik. She's product director. She has a very extensive experience in working with retailers of different verticals and specifically with grocery retailers as well. So she's an expert and she has an experience of 10+ years in this industry, and she definitely has what to share. And it's gonna be me. It's gonna be me. Sorry?
Anna, you made me shy.
Oh, okay. That was my purpose. Okay, and the second presenter, it's me. My name is Anna, and I'm head of business development. I work with clients also rather closely. I know their pains, so I hope that today we will answer your questions regarding this fresh category, and that this webinar will be useful and insightful for you. Before we go to the topic, let me tell just a couple of words about our company. Maybe some participants, they know us, already visited our meetings, but some not. So just a brief overview what we do. As Lifia, we optimize and automate solutions for the retail. And we have different solutions, and we try to approach that from different angles. The first, it's all a single platform that contains of several modules. The first one is inventory optimization. That's the solution that helps to automate the process in replenishment, the replenishment process for the retailer, starting from the stores and ending with distribution centers and warehouses. And also this tool is empowered by a BI module. So that's actually their tool that helps to deal with the issues of the fresh products as well. So we will be sharing our experience today from the angle of this inventory optimization tool. The second tool is promotion management. So if we consider inventory optimization as some basement, so the promotion management is something like the next step here. So it's the tool that uses AI and machine learning algorithm to provide a very efficient promotion management. This tool helps to, first of all, to manage everything in one place, like all promotion campaigns. It helps to make the order and make the forecasting for all promo campaign. And additionally, if the data is very mature, it helps to recommend some promo mechanics and discount for the typical promo campaign. And the last tool, the last module and part here is the planogram optimization solution that helps to manage and build the right end-to-end merchandising process, starting from macro spacing creation and ending with the planogram creation, planogram execution, and control of the planogram at the level of stores. So at the company, we have a very good experience. We know what we are talking about, and we built our solution based on the experience of our customers and based on the demand from the market. Currently, we have projects in 16 countries. We implemented more than 160 projects, and at the moment, we have around 100 employees in our team. We are working actually with different types of the retailers, with different verticals. Grocery retail is our sweet spot. That's we have a very good experience here. But also we work with the toy houses, we work with farmers, we work with gas stations and other retail verticals. But today, of course, we are going to focus on the fresh category management. So it's more relevant for the grocery retail business. Sometimes a fresh category is just the specific of some retailers, but in most cases it's the part of the assortment for supermarkets, for convenience stores, and so on. So let's start, before we go to the description of these fresh categories, I would like to say that we have a very extensive experience in automating this inventory management. And we help retailers to manage all product categories at all levels of the supply chain. So at the level of stores, at the level of regional warehouses and distribution centers. But today we would like to talk about the specific of this fresh category in terms of inventory management, as it's one of the most sensitive categories and always requires additional attention from the side of inventory management. Since we have made a dozen of projects with inventory management automation in this particular category as well, we have identified some common rules and patterns that are specific to fresh and implemented them in our algorithms in our solution, so that our customers, they can achieve very good results in managing this painful category. The fresh category itself, it's rather a broad one, and it consists of different subcategories. And to manage fresh products well, it's very important to understand not only the general features of fresh, but also the differences between these subcategories. Here is you can see the list of like typical fresh category, typical fresh products. So the first one is dairy products. So this subcategory is one of the most competitive. The dairy products, they are everyday goods. So it's one of the traffic generating products. And there is, of course, like a large number of vendors who produce milk, yogurt, cheese, but local vendors do that as well. So this diversity, it leads to increasing competition between brands. And vendors, they keep their prices at relatively the same way, which of course leads to reducing the margin. So beside that, such effect as cannibalization, it takes place a lot in this subcategory during promotional activities. And also there is such specific that dairy products, they have a rather short shelf life, something from 3 to 10 days. The next one here is fruits and vegetables. It's the most complex subcategory in terms of inventory management among all existing and fresh, because seasonality plays a huge role here, and as a result vendors have different pricing policies, and for purchasing managers it's critically important to compare the price for the same SKU and create the order based on the best pricing conditions. So it can be the situation when two batches of goods, of fresh goods, fruits and vegetables, they might be ordered from two different vendors or representatives within the same week even. And another negative phenomenon that takes place directly at stores in managing this category is inconsistency that happens during the inventory count. So sometimes while weighing some fruits or vegetables, people just mix the wrong SKU code, and as a result, there are wrong balances in the ERP system. But the biggest pain here is in managing this subcategory is appearance of the product on the shelf and its expiration date. Because two products from the same batch, they may differ. One item may look like the one to be written off, but the other one from the same batch, it still looks good. The next subcategory is bread and bakery. In some ways, this subcategory is similar to dairy products in terms of inventory management. Bread is also a traffic generating product, but the difference is in pricing, because bakery products can be divided into two types for some retailers. It's the own production and social products. So the maximum margin for the social group is something between like 5–7%, and at the same time for the own production it's much more interesting because it can reach up to 50% and even more. One of the main features of this category is the frequency of orders, because bread and bakery, it should be fresh, it should be crispy, and deliveries are done every day or even sometimes even twice a day. So, and the shelf life for this subcategory is very short one, so it's up to like 3 days on average. The last two categories, we will merge them because they have relatively common characteristics that might have cannibalization during the promotional activities. For example, if a regular meatball will be in promotion, no one will go and buy the meatball with the cheese. And the same logic, it works for the meat and fish, because if Dorado, for example, is sold at a discount, demand for sea bass or trout will decrease heavily. And also sales depend a lot on how accurately and nicely this kind of products, they are like the layout for this kind of product is made on the shelf. If we kind of make some helicopter view on the fresh category, we can divide and highlight this following specific. So first of all is they differ from other categories because of their short shelf life. Often it's not more than 30 days. Because of this feature, fresh can be given their title of the most risky category in grocery. Short shelf life requires a very precise balance between the availability and write-off, because striving for high availability can significantly increase write-off, which will immediately have a very negative impact on the company's financial result. The second one is that fresh category usually occupies a very large share in the company turnover. For some retailers, this number can reach up to 60%, and at the same time, the number of SKUs, they can be smaller in comparison with the other categories. So having not the highest margin, such product, they generate a significant sales volume, bringing the consumer back to the store regularly. And the last but not the least specific is that this category is like has a different like the peculiarity of orders and delivery. So for fresh goods, orders are sent at least 1-2 times per week. For some subcategories, even like every day, like for the bread, for example. And mostly it's direct deliveries from the supplier, so not from the regional warehouse or central warehouse. And the most important thing here is that the peculiarities of logistics, because during the transportation, some special conditions, temperature conditions should be kept. Like, for example, if we deliver the fish or meat, we should do that in a freezer, in the refrigerator. So it should be delivered under the cold temperature to the store. So with this being said, I'm giving the word to Helen. She will speak about their this specific of fresh category and how, and we will give some hints on how to deal with specific for each hint. Usually we solve that during our like implementation process, during our working with the customers, with the help of our solution, of course. So Helen, the stage is yours. We cannot hear you.
And now, do you hear me?
Yeah, now we can.
Yeah. Thank you, Anna. So nevertheless, there is a couple of some specific issues that are connected with managing the inventories of the fresh category. At the same time, with the proper management of this category, a retailer can improve the turnover in general, earn more, and attract customers to the store, since the fresh category is a traffic generating one. So let's talk deeply about how to handle this sensitive fresh category and earn more without additional costs for demand stimulation. So the first point here is about the data, the clean and correct data on balances, sales, and write-off. It is a very, very crucial thing for demand forecasting and demand planning as a whole, but for fresh category, it is very, very important. It is the higher age of importance, I guess. The data correctness determines the final quality of the order, because with incorrect data in the input, good quality shouldn't be expected at the output. So in terms of fresh goods, there are often problems with the correctness of balances due to late fixation of deliveries in the ERP system, late write-offs, and returns to the suppliers. Of course, I mean the fixation of returns to the suppliers. Of course, if they are possible according to the agreements with the suppliers and according to the company's policy. Also, especially in the category of fresh fruits and vegetables, as Anna already had said, there is often an inconsistency during the inventory count. So the final balance for the whole category might even be correct, but for some particular SKUs, the information could be incorrect. So here the main recommendations would be, in terms of the operational specifics and in terms of improving the, let's say, the operational excellence more than the auto ordering system. But nevertheless, they are worth to be said. So the first thing here, just a moment. the first thing here is to establish time limitations for fixations on goods delivery in the ERP system. And in this case, it is possible to minimize the risk of negative balances. The second point is to determine the schedule.
Sorry for interrupting. What limitation, what time limitation would you recommend for this fixation of the data in the ERP system?
So the best variant, of course, would be the day-to-day fixation, day-by-day fixation, I mean. And I know a list of companies who are on the rather high level of the operational excellence, and they do it day-to-day. And it would be perfect for the inventory management. But of course, in not all cases, it is possible due to some operational reasons, I guess. So the best variant is day-to-day, but it could also be okay if all these fixations will be done not later than tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay, so the second point was about determining the schedule for the inventory count, according to which the count of the fresh category need to be done more frequently than for dry goods. And the third one is to establish a time limitation for backdating documents if your company has such a practice. Because, you know, even in due to the presence of the strict rules, it can stimulate a more responsible attitude to the data for the past periods, of course. And it is very important because when you change something in the past, it is possible that you will not be able to analyze why some certain decisions were made in the past. As we have a lot of cases in our projects when we were just like investigating the reasons why the system calculated some kind of a strange order, and we were investigating it, and only in logs we can see that the balance was different to the correct one on the order date. So we understand that the balance was changed in the past, and as a result, we got the incorrect order and a lot of mess in the ordering process and reliability of orders.
Yeah, actually, the data is a very tricky, how to say, tricky point for every retailer, and it's one of the most common questions from our customers about the data maturity and what data maturity should be during, like, for the beginning of the project for the replenishment automation. And during the first stage of implementation, we usually like analyze what's the current situation, what the data, what's the level of maturity of the data, and we are working on improving this level. Helen, can you maybe say what are the perks for the retailers who are rather mature in data, in terms of the data, who have like really high data quality? What can be the perks for such kind of retailers?
You know, as Anna said, we are working with retailers on any stage of the data maturity, and sometimes we face some big issues with the data maturity, and it really doesn't stop us from the implementation of our solutions, as during the implementation process we are just working hard to make the data as good as it is possible. But of course, there is a variety of customers who already have the initial very high level of the data maturity. And in this case, of course, it is a very great opportunity for us to implement all advanced methods of forecasting that that our solutions consist. And if talking about the, let's say, the highest level of the maturity, it is of course the forecasting of the promotions. Of course, we will talk about it a little bit later in the webinar, but still, as the retailer has the high level of the data maturity and has the data to forecast be based on, in this case, we can use advanced methods as machine learning and using the AI algorithm for predicting the promotional sales and demand. Okay, I think that we can move on. So the second point is to consider the remaining shelf life and predict the shelf life of the current stock balance at the time of delivery of the next batch of goods. You know, it is not a secret that creating and maintaining batch accounting in food retail is impossible, since in one shipment may be goods from different batches with different expiration dates. So it is very hard, and I think that it is really impossible to keep track of from batch the goods were sold and with which expiration date. But still, it is very important to consider expiration dates because ignoring this information can cause write-offs, especially for the goods with bad inventory turnover. Shelf life should be taken into account at the time of the calculating the forecasted balance on the date of the goods delivery. So it is important to understand whether the balance will be valid or, let's say, appropriate for sale at the time when this current order will arrive. So our recommendations here will be the following. The first is to consider the residual shelf life. We call it the residual shelf life in the system. It is the number of days starting from when the product is delivered to the store till the end of its shelf life. So this information can be considered to calculate the forecasted stock balance for the date the product will be delivered. And the second point here is to consider the sales by the LIFO method. LIFO is last in, first out. So to assume that the customer will buy the freshest goods first. This approach allows to consider the fact that not the fact balance will be available for sales, even if the goods were not written off in time. Unfortunately, we often face untimely write-off during the implementations, and it really takes time to change the process to have all the documents in the ERP system up to date. So therefore, to minimize the impact of the incorrect balances, we recommend doing a balance check using the LIFO method. The third specific thing is consider variability across the week. It is not a secret as well that every product has its variability across a week. And a good example here can be some home appliances that are sold significantly better on Friday and during the weekends than during the weekdays. But this pattern, of course, characterizes the fresh category as well. And since goods of this category are supplied frequently, the supplier schedule could be on the daily basis or several times a week, and the shelf life is limited. We recommend using this week's variability coefficients to predict demand for the next delivery. These coefficients could be calculated by some statistical methods or by more advanced methods using the AI technologies.
Helen, can I ask?
Yes.
Can I ask here regarding the coefficients? So in the case of the replenishment automation solution, should these coefficients be calculated and passed from the customer, from the retailer, from their accounting or ERP system, or should they be calculated directly in the solution itself?
Of course, yeah. Thank you very much for your question. It is rather good question, Anna. So considering such coefficients, the main aim here is to make the forecasting more accurate in terms of demand, of course, but it really should be included into the auto ordering algorithm, because otherwise it might be just labor intensive and generate a lot of errors and mistakes, while people will be just calculating these coefficients and using them in the orders. As every product in every store will have its own specific weekly demands, which depends on not only the specific of the product, but also on its location, I mean the shop location, the store location, and the format of the store. Also, it is worth mentioning here that it is important to consider the time during the day, the particular time during the day when the delivery is made. This allows making the delivery schedule more accurate, to take into account the required number of days and even hours in the forecast. And we call this the delivery slots, and it really helps us to make the order even more accurate for our customers.
Yeah, because if the orders are delivered like in the morning, they still have the day to sell this product. But if the product is delivered like during the daytime, it's just like the part of the day during which the sales can happen.
Yeah, exactly, Anna, exactly. So the fourth point is considering the zero balances for the end of the day for the ultra fresh category. Ultra fresh category and goods have some interesting specifics, such as in a lot of cases there is no stock balance for the end of the day, and in practice it just looks like this: goods are ordered, they are received to the location, and they are sold on the same day. But it is very hard to understand if there were enough quantity of products for each particular day to satisfy the customer's demand. So the first thing, the first of all, for such SKUs, we should consider the time of the day when the last sales were made, and this information could be seen in the receipts. So this allows you to understand whether there was not enough stock balance until the end of the day, and whether the demand of the day was not covered. If yes, so if the demand was not covered, the order quantity should be increased to have enough stock balance to cover the future demand. But this is only relevant if the availability of goods has not been reduced on purpose to minimize the write-off, because in some cases it is not economically good for the retailer to have the 100% availability. And the second point is about the out of stocks. Out of stocks is an important indicator of the fresh category, but if the stock balance is zero each day, it is very complicated to calculate the out of stocks. So we use another assumption in this case to make the correct calculation. If there was not enough balance at the end of the day, if the balance is zero by the end of the day, to calculate lost sales, it is worth using some kind of the average daily usage, the statistical average daily usage for this calculation. And just for one more time, we would like to emphasize for ultra fresh, it is crucially important, critically important to have correct data on inventory and sales. The fifth point, the increasing part of promotions among the fresh category. We have touched the topic of the promotions, but still the forecasting and promo management is already a very difficult process. And taking into account all the above specifics of fresh, it really turns into a very complex, risky, and expensive process with a lot of mistakes. So we recommend, first of all, use demand forecasting algorithms in promotions that take into account every specific thing of the fresh category, and of course taking into consideration the cannibalization of demand within the category for the most accurate demand forecasting. The cannibalization is a specific thing, of course, for all SKUs in the product range, but for fresh SKUs, it is crucial to take into account the cannibalization across the category. The second point here is to take into account the actual promotional sales in real time. And the sooner you start considering reliable statistics for a particular product in particular location in a particular promo, the better it is. And be very, very careful with additional promotional layouts at stores, as additional tools are needed to automatically consider that it is additional equipment to make sure that there won't be overstocks when the promo will end. And the last but not the least, I think that it is my favorite topic, the ongoing analysis of the bottlenecks in ordering the fresh category. So in this webinar, we will not discuss general KPIs that are relevant for all product categories, such as inventories, sales, lost sales, overstocks, availability, and the inventory turnover. We have a separate webinar for the analysis of those indicators. Today, we would like to focus on the indicators that are specific to our topic, to the fresh category. So taking into consideration all mentioned specifics, it is important to analyze write-off and its dynamics, as we were talking a lot about write-off. The bottlenecks caused by situation when minimum order quantity is higher than sales for the term of the product shelf life. So in this case, each replenishment is bigger than the ability of the location to sell during the shelf life of the item. And the third thing, the bottlenecks when the number of days for delivery is higher than the residual shelf life. In Leaf solution, there is a separate block of reports for analyzing the fresh category. So now we have switched to the system. And for example, this particular report shows specific SKUs in specific locations. You see the information regarding the name of the SKU, the specific location, the information regarding the supplier, for which the minimum order quantity, just a second, for which the minimum order quantity is higher than the average number of sales per shelf life of the item. So the system, so you can see that the expected sales in quantity would be like this. The average daily usage is like this. The minimum order quantity is like this. So the system also calculates the expected percentage of sales the suppliers packaging and predicts write-off of the product based on this logic. So we can easily see we can easily see the expected returns off for the future delivery period. The next report is regarding the returns of history that could be sorted. For instance, due to the decreasing by SKUs at storage locations for the fact write-off in purchase prices or in quantities during the previous week. So going back to the presentation, as they say, what gets measured gets managed. Such as important category definitely requires precise analysis and control. Anna, please, could you summarize and give us some key outcomes here?
Yeah, sure. Just wanted to thank you for outline and highlighting this specific. And regarding the last one, the analytics, it's one of our favorite part, but we definitely know that a lot of actually, it's not only about the retailers; it's in every industry that people are so like deep dive into the routine work that they don't have enough time to make the analytics. Like everyone knows that analytics, it's good to make analytics, it's good to analyze, so on, but no one has time for that. So it's good that you highlighted that. So regarding the outcomes, let's summarize what's been said today. So fresh is one of the most difficult categories in terms of inventory management, and while managing this category, it's you should pay like separate attention and use a different approach to each subcategory. About the data, bad input, bad output. So multiple that by 10 and you get the impact of data quality on the quality of inventory management of the fresh category. So that's why it's important to do paperwork and inventory count in time. Like Helen said, ideally every day, but in the wrong scenario, just like for tomorrow, for yesterday. And it's very important to limit the document backdating. The next one is next specific is a special approach should be used for estimation of the balances at the projected order arrival date, and we recommend to do it by the residual shelf life using the LIFO model. Considering that fresh is a very risky group of product, we recommend to apply coefficients of variability across the week because the demand in the week is different, and it's very important to make the orders like based on this each specific of each daily demand. For calculating statistics and out of stock for ultra fresh category, it's important to understand the reason of these zero balances for the end of the day and when these zero balances they happened, because maybe the balances wasn't enough to cover the daily demand. Advanced tools should be used to forecast promotional demand and should be based on reliable current statistics during the ongoing promotions. And the last but not the least, of course, it's about the ongoing analysis and improvements and monitoring the KPIs. So especially such KPIs in terms of fresh as availability and write-off, and also to analyze the various bottlenecks that are specific to this category of products. Like Helen showed, the minimum order quantity when it is bigger than their sales for the like shelf life when the product is at store. So that's it regarding what we wanted to cover. Thank you for attending. We will be happy to discuss this topic specifically for your company to show how we solve that, how we approach that. And also the next webinar we will conduct, it will be regarding their management of alcohol category at stores. It might be relevant both for the liquor shops and for the supermarkets that have this category present in their stores. Thank you everyone for your attention and for attending us. See you during our next webinars. Have a good day.
See you. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.